And we are live. Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is Kid Nate of BloodyElbow.com, and I'm back with Eugene Robinson, the author of Fight. That's Eugene S. Robinson, the author of Fight and frontman for Oxbow, coming at us once again from Mountain View, California. Hello, Eugene.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very well. Glad to have you again.
Hey, look at that! Yeah, the guy's complaining about my nostrils. The number one key as to why I'm still alive today: nostrils.
It's a key. It's a key ingredient in all our success. So today we're gonna look back briefly at the UFC on Fuel, Struve versus Miocic. We're gonna look ahead to the UFC on FX, Bigfoot versus Browne. And we're going to talk a little bit about the UFC's pay-per-view numbers and TV ratings. Which one do you want to do first, Eugene?
Let's start. Well, actually, you failed to mention the thing that I'd like to start with most, which is where you tell me how great I am for having 100% accuracy rate on my picks, and then you tell me how much you suck.
Because well, you know, we can revisit that on another episode.
Yeah, that's like one of those Chuck Berry. We'll talk about that later. My time in the penitentiary later.
Later. We'll revisit that after next week when we see how you do on UFC on FX.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, you know, that's the thing. America hates a winner. You know, I could get 100% right 100% of the time. They would still be doubters. So 100% stone cold lock. Bet the house on it. I'm your number one Vegas handicapper. So anyway, it was a good night. It was a good night.
What you said you wanted to talk about Michael Bisping's development. What do you got to say on that topic?
You know, I'd like to. You know, there might be a tendency to, you know, American as drawn from its political, the tone and timbre of its political life. It has gotten this whole thing with entrenched positions. You know, Grover Norquist, not to go all political, says it's binary. You're either going to sign the petition that says you're anti-tax or you're not. There's no middle way. I like to talk about Bisping because of the fact that I actually have evolved my position on Bisping. After Bisping robbed Matt Hamill, which wasn't really Bisping robbing Matt Hamill, it was maybe, I don't know, Cecil Peoples. You know, I'm not even going to refer to him as a person anymore, but just like a natural phenomenon. Like there was a hurricane, there's a flood, there was an earthquake, there's a Cecil Peoples. You know, after he got robbed the deaf guy, I was like done with the count. Done, and it was with glee. I actually had as a screensaver the Johnny Utah shot of Henderson knocking him out again and again. I watched it several times. Much with my Danzig, the Danzig thing of Danzig getting knocked out.
Everybody likes that one.
I love, you know, a friend of mine said, you know, he's almost a 60-year-old man. I guess I shouldn't derive so much pleasure, but, you know, you don't push somebody and put your hands down. Anyway, Bisping has evolved from this loudmouth to he's done something that I like, that only some fighters do. You know, he goes back to the drawing board. Everybody says, well, let's go back to the drawing board. Very few guys actually do. There are a few that do. Chet Congo is actually, you can see now, maybe spent some time on the ground. He doesn't seem, you see him on the ground, you can smell the fact that he's been on the ground. He's got his hands around it. Basics, getting up and escaping. He's figured out. Bisping goes away, comes back, restored. You know, who was the guy who he robbed Matt Hamill got robbed. I don't say Bisping robbed him. Bisping did rob the Puerto Rican cat. What was the guy's name?
Jorge Rivera.
Jorge Rivera. He robbed him. And there's a tendency now, it's not an accident. Only an idiot believes it's a coincidence. You know, when he gets pushed, and this is now why I've evolved my position to liking Bisping. When Bisping gets pushed, he goes street. Oh, I kicked you in the nuts? Sorry. No. I'm not going gentle into this good night. So I finally evolved my position where I'm not a nut jumper. I'm not a booster. But, I think Bisping is doing the right things, especially since, again, in keeping with America hating a winner, especially since I think the tide is against him. You know, I'm putting my finger up in the air, and, he wants to be a company guy, and he's useful to the UFC because he gins up the UK numbers, but I don't think they've got his back. And I don't think they have his back for class reasons. You know, I mean, you look at that guy. First of all, he's not going to get to Silva, so it's almost a moot point. But I just don't think they want a yob, which is what they call him there. They want a yob with a belt. I think that's why they were talking about having Chael Sonnen fight John Jones, who is at least as deserving as Nick Diaz against Anderson Silva, or I mean against GSP. But I don't think the prospect of a Diaz taking the belt from I got a truck here. I'm sorry. The prospect of a Diaz taking a belt from a GSP and being the belt holder, I'm sure keeps Dana White up at night. Diaz is an original. And if he wins that fight, he deserves a belt like anybody else. But Dana is looking at a 360-degree picture. We're looking at a very narrow portion of that picture, which has to do with sports and sporting competition.
Yeah, Dana's got to worry about Nick Diaz getting on planes.
Yeah, you know what? The whole press conference thing. I could be wrong about this. I got this whole Berlin 1944 thing happening where everybody in Berlin was like, Hitler's got a special secret. He'll pull this thing out. And then they were sitting in rubble crying. I think that was part of Diaz's whole thing. I think he thought ultimately the press conference wasn't that important. And I think he thought, getting GSP's head. We've been backstage at fights where Nick is and seen him just sit there at the rules meeting and when they're talking, just sit there staring at his opponent. And his opponent will look at him and kind of smile like, hey, dude, that's the dude I'm fighting. And Nick won't be smiling. He'll just be staring. Nick's
a scrapper, Stockton style.
Minutes, man. For 40, if I stop talking to you and just start staring at you for 40 minutes, it's going to get uncomfortable.
A tad. That's what Rampage Jackson did with Ariel Helwani and some. Did you see the interview they did, Helwani and Jackson?
About this, I haven't actually watched it. What happened?
They got on the subway and some people started videotaping Rampage, and he just gave him the stink eye and shut him down. It was pretty funny. Well. Let's turn to the upcoming card, UFC on FX. You ready?
Well, hold on. Oh. You didn't actually tell me how great my picks were. Or did you? I forgot. I didn't hear it.
Maybe. I said, I said there might be element of beginner's luck here. A new guy. We gotta. It takes time. Things gotta percolate out over the season. So let's. Any undercard fights you want to talk about before we jump to the main card?
Let's go backwards in time.
Going backwards, start with the headliner, huh? So we got Bigfoot against Travis Browne. This is the big fight where they're expecting Travis Browne to emerge as a bona fide contender by putting a beat down on the famous Antonio Bigfoot Silva. Who you got, Eugene?
Well, I do this whole voodoo thing, which is not a sound way to make a decision, but we're all thinking the same things. We're all paying attention to the same fights. Silva is in a must-win position. Emotionally, he's in a must-win position. He's had a good run, but I'm also having a long enough memory to remember, the older Bigfoot. I'm digressing. I'm digressing here in order to answer why I think Browne under normal circumstances is unlikely to take this fight because his attention is diffuse. He's hanging out with the Minnesota Vikings. He's doing, and Dana wants it too much. Dana lives. If the UFC is full of Brazilians, Glover Teixeira, Anderson Silva. This is not what he wants for whatever reason. He wants the U.S. to be well represented. So Travis Browne is the guy that's being pulled for. The emotional basis that Bigfoot has to win, given his recent losses, is pretty high. But I think he's got a lot of negatives. Bigfoot does, and I don't think I don't think he's super fast. I've never seen enough of his ground to be sufficiently impressed. He's strong. His striking is kind of kludgy. Even though he's got a really major kind of, emotional investment, like it's a must win. That interferes with a guy's head, and I'm gonna have to call it for. I'm going to have to call it for Browne in this instance. And I don't know what are the odds? Did you check out the odds recently?
I have not looked, but I can pull that up right quick and see UFC on FX Browne versus Silva odds. I have to believe that Browne is going to be a favorite.
Oh, is he a favorite? Okay.
But let me
Can,
pull up the odds. I mean, Silva's coming off 2 straight losses, and
come
Browne's
on.
undefeated. So
And look at the losses he came off of. He came TKO, KO, and then I mean his last decision loss was against Verdum, and even before that, when he all of his losses have been through punches because he's got that big old melon, you know. So he's not a wrestler, you know. If he happens to be on the ground, you know, I'm sure his jiu-jitsu or will maybe help him out. But he's lost by punches each time. And if Browne can do enough to stay out of his world and you know, KTFO, you know, I mean, I'm disappointed when I find out that Browne is the favorite because I don't think it's that simple a pick.
Yeah,
but
he's
I think,
a negative 225 favorite. Silva's a plus 185. So.
All right, well, you know, I want to be a contrarian, and I hate to go with the
Second guessing yourself is a good way to break up your record.
The crowd is going with me. I'm not going with the crowd. I'm going to call this one Browne. I mean, let me tell you something else. If Browne doesn't win this, he's done. He is done.
You think he'll never recover?
No, I'm thinking that, you know, gatekeeping in MMA is not like gatekeeping in boxing. You remember Damian Maia? The guy had this great record. He loses one fight. There's all this talk, this chatter about him being done. Well, you know, sort of was right, you know. I mean, this sport seems to reward and love meteoric rises. You know, there is no AD here, no artist development, no FD, no fighter development here. You come up or you go home, beat it. You know.
Well, Browne has recovered from the tie with Cheek Congo, which was an ugly baut at UFC 120. You remember that one? That was a lot of nut punching and.
Yeah, but you know that 120 was a while ago, and if he's the kind of fighter, again. We start off with Bisping. You check Congo is actually another one who's spent some time to figure if he's one of these guys who goes, you know, this is my job and I should be getting better at my job so I can get bonuses and raises and, you know, then he is. There's some guys, I mean, when I say not everybody does that, we all know those fighters who come out and are consistently the same. You go, my God, hasn't this guy, I mean, look at Chael Sonnen's losses. You would have thought at a certain point that the guy would have figured stuff out, but, you know, there's a mistake that wrestlers make a lot, that they would have figured out, I mean, I don't really know. I can control the top. I don't really have to worry that much about being submitted by a jiu-jitsu guy. Yeah. Oh, really?
I think Chael's problem is more of a mental breakdown than a lack of training. I think he's improved his jiu-jitsu, and he showed it in the Bisping fight. But, you know, Matt Lindland said that Chael's a lifetime second-place finisher, and I think he just is one of those guys that finds a way to...
You said that? That's tough, man. And are they still friends?
I don't know. Sonnen's not been training with Lindland recently, so... And there was the whole who told Kaiser about the testosterone thing, and so I don't know. But after...
That's true. True. Harsh, but true.
Yeah, so... You know, I'm gonna go with Browne too, but Silva's got a 4-inch reach advantage on him despite the height advantage, and that's one thing I think to watch. Also, I think Silva hits harder even if he's slower, so there's a chance. He's got the proverbial puncher's chance, if I can wallow in cliches, which is what I do. So, you got anything else to say on that one? You ready to move down the card?
Yeah. I think you know. It makes me nervous, but I'm fine. Let's move down the card. I'm gonna stand by that. You know, I mean, Browne he's got no losses, which means in my mind that he's overdue. But I'm seeing all the indications are in his favor. And so next on we're talking about Ellenberger
and Hiron, Jay Hiron. Is that right?
Yeah, Jay Hiron. I think I'm not sure where. All the scuttlebutt I've been reading, it's like, you know, with MMA, it moves so fast that, you know, you miss a day because you're traveling or something. People are talking about Jake Ellenberger like something happened. You know, I don't know what happened to Jake Ellenberger that people, like, all of a sudden Jake Ellenberger's got something to prove, you know.
Well, Martin Kampman happened to Jake Ellenberger. I mean.
Come on, you know. This is what I'm talking about. The guy put a string of 6 wins together against guys who weren't bums, you know. Mike Pyle, John Howard, you know, guy who I train with now, Carlos Eduardo Rocha, who does, incidentally, he got robbed Carlos got robbed in that one, but whatever. We won't talk about that. Jake Shields, Diego Sanchez. He loses to, you know, it was a second. Whatever. I'm calling this one for Campman. You know.
You going?
I mean, Freudian slip. I'm calling this one for Ellenberger. You know?
Going for Ellenberger? Yeah, I got to go with you on that too. Hiron is too old. I think 36 years old. He's been out of the UFC way too long.
Say anything about age, my friend.
It's all about age, Eugene. We're both old enough to know that.
Yeah, these old guys like Jesus Christ. These old guys like me, they get sensitive about the age. I did some MMA fight, right? And the guy is punching on me. And he's like, yeah, you know, we're going. And he's talking trash as we're fighting. He's like, you know, you punch like a girl. I got 3 daughters. It doesn't bother me. He's like making fun the whole time. And then finally, he says to me, he goes, come on, old man. And I flipped out. That's what won the fight for me. I actually really got angry. It was the first time, you know, because if you're training this all the time, you don't get angry. You know, it's technical. You're thinking, boom. Oh, I got angry, man. I went full on chemo on him. You know, headbutt, the whole thing. Went nuts and won the fight. And
awesome.
then I guess I'm kind of sensitive about the age.
You know, I'm up there too. It's not pretty. There's not a happy ending at the end of the road.
But more importantly, I think he can perform at 36. But that's only half the story, man. It's what everybody's thinking about, and I mean everybody. You know, they don't keep these judges in a box and then truck them out of the box when you know, they're in the world too. Doug Crosby's in the world too. These guys are reading, talking, listening. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that Jay Heron's coming into the cage in a walker with a cane, but I'm just saying, you know, he will be judged accordingly based on collective understanding of who he is. So if it goes to a decision, which I don't think it will, you know, again, it counts against him. But this is interesting. This is an interesting fight because it means, just like Travis Browne and Silva, it means the same thing. If Ellenberger doesn't beat Jay Heron,
that's 2 losses in a row, and that would be a very bad note for Jake Ellenberger's career, I think.
I don't think we'd be too aggressive in saying he's done. You know, I mean, the guy can still fight, but he's not in contention. You know, I mean,
yeah, it would take a considerable feat in that division to get back into contention. So you ready to move on to John the Magician Dodson against
yeah.
Jussier Formiga. I have no idea how to say that cat's name. Flyweight. He's fought a lot at the fight.
You mean Jussier de Silva?
Yeah.
Well, I'm here with a Brazilian. Is that how you say his name? Jussier? Confirmed. Jussier de Silva.
Jussier de Silva. So, you know, I've watched him a lot at Tachi Palace fights. I've always been impressed with him, but honestly, I think he's one of those guys who looks better at the regional level. I don't know that he has the athleticism to compete at the UFC level. And I've seen Dodson fight quite a bit in Virginia from close to the cage, and also talked to him quite a bit. I think Dodson's one of the most intelligent fighters I've ever met, especially as far as studying the fight game. Plus, he's fast. He's a magician. He's been fighting guys bigger than him for a long time. I saw him fight Mike Easton in Virginia a few years ago, and you know, Easton is a bull for a bantamweight, and Dodson was not intimidated, didn't back down at all. I got to go with Dodson here. I don't think he can finish De Silva, but I think he'll cruise to a decision. What's your take?
Okay. Here's where we get to some real gaming. I'm gonna, just for the sake of the sport here, I'm gonna part ways with you on this one, and I'm gonna pick De Silva. I'm gonna tell you why it's a foolish chancy pick for me. So it undercuts my point. That I think a lot of times Brazilian cats, when they show up in the UFC, whether it's a head thing or what, but either their first or initial showings are not super strong, which is why you feel like they sneak up on you. You know, I mean, I mean, nobody was super excited about Anderson Silva at first. I mean, if you remember the first time that he made an appearance when he fought the Rich Franklin, it was like, huh? Yeah, right.
I mean, the Chris Lieben fight was. I mean, that was spectacular, but
correct. That was.
But when he was kind of rushed into a title shot. I mean, he fought Chris Lieben in his first fight. Boom, he's fighting Rich Franklin for the title, and I mean, nobody expected him to just do what he did to Rich Franklin. I get your point there.
So I'm thinking that like it's a head issue sometimes with the Brazilian fighters. I mean, also too, head issues come into play when it means a lot. I mean, you got people chatter in your ear. It's not, if this fight was maybe in Rio instead of Minneapolis, it's, these are humans, they're not immune from, what they call cage jitters. This is the big deal. And there's this idea, man, if I blow it, once you start thinking, once you start thinking that, God, man, that's terrible. No matter what you're talking about, I had a date once, and a friend of my roommate says, so you got a date? Pretty excited about your date? I was like, yeah, I'm excited about the date. He goes, yeah, dating is so weird. So many things can go wrong. I go, wrong? Well, what could go wrong? I mean, if you even get lucky and it gets to the sex thing, as a man, anything could happen. I mean, imagine that. You're there, she's beautiful, but you just can't get it up.
That's evil.
That problem goes, no, you just can't get it up. No matter what you do, you just can't get it. And so he just keeps, at first I'm laughing because I know what he's doing, but after about 15 minutes of that,
Yeah.
So later on, at the date, you think, okay. And she later on, of course, I successfully completed the exchange, and she goes, "Man, you seemed really directed out there." I was like, "Hey, baby, you don't know what the half of what I'm dealing with here, Trying to undercut my point here, but I think that I'm still going to call it for Hussier because I want to give you a chance.
Well, that's very generous of you, Eugene, and much appreciated. So we're split on the Dodson De Silva fight, which is a #1 title contender shot. How do you think the two of them stand? What are their odds against Demetrius Johnson? Who do you think matches up better against Mighty Mouse?
I would really like to see Dodson fight Demetrius Johnson. They remind me of each other in a certain regard, But yeah, and I think whoever Mighty Mouse fights his next fight is in for a fight because again, we're real people involved in real. And I don't think. I mean, I was there. And I saw, I saw Demetrius shocked that an entire, a building full of people was booing him, So I think that the guy has figured out, what? It's not just, John Bones Jones is sponsored by Nike, not just because he's a good fighter. That's part of it. People have to like your fights. You can win your fights without people liking you. Latter day GSP being a prime example. Wins the fights, people don't like him. Not because they hate a winner in this instance, but because his winning of the fights was workmanlike. I did just enough. To beat the other guy. Don't you love me? No, actually we don't.
You think that Mighty Mouse is going to be coming out angry and ready to kill?
I think he's no matter who it is, he's coming out hard. In that instance, I would actually almost rather see him fight Dodson because they are similar fighters. And Usyk is kind of he's not unidimensional, but you look at his wins and how he's had them. I think it would be a less interesting matchup, even though I'm going to call this fight for De Silva.
All right. You ready to move on to the welterweight opener with Justin Edwards and Josh the Dentist Neer?
Yeah, you know what? Now I'm just in crazy land. This is where you'll get me. Where there's not consistency, where I start to let the emotions interfere, and I'm gonna go with Neer. That's it.
Going with the dentist, huh?
Yeah. I guess that's only a bold pick if you disagree with the pick.
Well, I mean, Neer's favored. He's a -285 favorite. Edwards a +225 underdog. Edwards is coming off a loss to John McGuire. Neer is coming off a loss as
Mike
well
Pyle.
to Mike Pyle. Got knocked out
Which again, this guy's in a position. He's got to show out.
Yeah, I got to go with Neer here too, just because I'm a fan of the dentist. For a long time, he was the man elbowing Forrest Petz's face on the Bloody Elbow logo. We recently replaced it, but Fight Linker did that logo for us, and it was a Josh Neer photo that was doctored. And I like his fighting style. It's ugly, it's mean, it's vicious. He likes to stand and bang, but he can grapple too. He gets on top of you, he'll fuck you up. Edwards, I'm not that sold on. He's got some submission wins early, but seems like the kind of guy in the UFC. He wins by decision at best, and I think Neer just has too many ways to finish the fight. So I got to go with Neer here. Then on the undercard, let's talk about 2 or 3 of these on the Fuel TV card, but not all of them. Any of these you're jumping out at you? You got the list in front of you?
Yeah, I do. You know what? There are only a few that I give a good crap about. Darren Uyenoyoma, because I know him, so I'm paying attention to that fight, and he's a friend of Knuckle Up, my radio show. So, which means that I will pick him, but that may not be a sane pick for me. But I noticed he's dropped the Bone Crusher, Darren the Bone Crusher, as his fight nickname, or at least they're not using it as often as they used to. But Yves Edwards, he's a guy who got a raw deal. So my picking of Yves Edwards is not a sane pick because he's been inconsistent, but his inconsistency came as a result post-raw deal, which means that it makes sense to me, if I'm not as crisp after getting out of the penitentiary as I was before the penitentiary, it should make sense. And I don't want to use the penitentiary as a parallel for him being, consigned to nowhere's land before the UFC firmed up what they were going to do for the lower divisions, But the guy, his all-time defining Yves Edwards moment was at the fight he had before he fought Josh Thompson. He's there at the press conference, and Josh Thompson is jawing from the seats, and without even not even departing too much from what he was talking about, he goes, "I'm going to knock him out." And then he continued with what he was saying. Yves Edwards is great, man. And then the next fight, he fights Josh Thompson, does a leaping spin kick to the side of Thompson's neck, puts him out. This was Muhammad Ali-esque, and the guy he was one of those guys, I call it, just bad time. It's like, again, sorry to go back to World War II analogies. I just happened to be reading a book on World War II. It's like being in Germany in 1933 and going, hey, maybe we should move to Poland.
That was a bad call.
Oh, man. So Yves Edwards was just the right guy at the wrong time, And people will come to him and say, man, what about it when you were in your prime? Don't you wish all the love that people are paying to the lower divisions? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, when I was in my prime. Thank you. Thanks for telling me again that I was a guy who could have been there. Maybe Don Fry feels that way too, I imagine.
Yeah, no telling what Don Fry feels. I think he feels intoxicated much of the time. But I got to go with the I don't know, man. I can't pick Edwards over the Bone Crusher. I think that neither of them is a spring chicken, but Uyenoyama. How do you say his name? Uyenoyama. Darren
Uyenoyama is fighting Phil Harris. That's a different story. Yves Edwards is fighting Jeremy Stevens.
Oh, you're right. You are correct. I'm sitting here with Wikipedia in front of my dumb ass and can't even figure that out. I've been watching Jeremy Stevens' training blogs. I don't know, man. Stevens is tough. He's angry. He's young.
He is. He's tough and he's angry. So, but I just can't. As an older fighter, I usually go for the older fighters. I'm giving you a forewarning on this pick. I'll do. This is a second tier pick. In other words, I wouldn't put any money on this, but I got to go with my heart. Yves Edwards was wronged, bad time, older guy. I got to go for him. I don't think he's going to pull it out, but I'm going to make a pick for him.
I don't know. Stevens is coming off 2 losses, Donald Cerrone and Anthony Pettis, both decisions though. He didn't get blown out in either fight.
Right.
And Edwards, that knockout against Sam Stout, he's got to win. No, he's got to win and a loss since then. But that knockout against Sam Stout that chilled me, man. I mean, that's the kind of punch I think that takes away from your ability to withstand damage. That was just a perfect on the button, right into the brainstem.
Yep.
I don't know. And 36, and Thug Jitsu.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. I'm not saying it's a sound pick on my part. Like I'm saying.
But he does have ring IQ advantage, a significant ring IQ advantage over Stevens, who's Melvin Guillard played the Matador against the Bull to Stevens' Bull. So, Stevens is not a thinking man's fighter. He's pure animal force. The rare explosive white man. I gotta
test on that guy.
I gotta go with Stevens on that one. What else is jumping out at you on the undercard?
Danny Castillo, Michael Johnson, don't care.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jacob Volkman and Shane Roller, don't really care. Nunes against Palashevsky, don't care.
That one's kind of a contender match, and I actually care about the Roller Volkman fight because it's going to prove my theory that two boring wrestlers together does not necessarily mean a boring fight.
I agree with you 100% on that one. I agree because they choose to do other things because they know I don't want to be caught doing near falls with some guy. So I think
I don't think Volkman can mug Roller the way he's been mugging people, but
No, but this is a secondary or tertiary bout at best anyway. Either one of these guys wins, and the world yawns. That doesn't make a difference. So Thiago Tavares and Dennis Hallman. Now come on, man. Dennis Hallman. Nobody's thinking about Dennis Hallman as in any kind of serious contender type way. That guy is entertaining every single fight, in a way that I think is really smart. That's not all ham-handed kind of pro wrestling WWE type stuff. I mean, you think about his.
He did come out in a thong.
That's what I mean, man. Come on. And then, they interview him at one of his fights, 3 or 4 fights before then, and they said, "What do you think the keys to victory for you in this?" He goes, "Well, I think mostly my karate." And usually when they show shots of guys training, like he's in his like gi and he's his karate kid. It was really cool, man. I mean, as a stage performer myself, I'm liking that the guy is putting some effort into making it just not another day at the office,
Yeah, I think one factor in this fight is that neither guy has fought basically all year. Tavares fought Sam Stout in January, and Hallman fought last in December. And I think we're going to be dealing with some ring rust there. Tavares is somebody I'm kind of sentimentally attached to because I bought the hype when he first came into the UFC. Was really impressed with him early on. And then I thought he beat Tyson Griffin, and ever since then he's just been up and down and well outside contendership. But I don't know. I got to go with Tavares here. Let's see who's favored. Let's see. Tavares is heavily favored, negative 240 over against 190. I think Hallman.
Pick Hallman.
No, you're going to pick Hallman. I'm going to go with Tavares there. Because Hallman relies on his grappling, and I don't think he's going to be able to out-grapple Tavares. What else? Anything else there? That's it.
I got to pick Darren the Bone Crusher because I got to see the guy locally.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I got to go with him too because he's fighting a Brit who's new to the UFC, and Phil Harris, and I just that's rarely a good thing. What about the Aaron Simpson, Mike Pierce card?
Huh?
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
I said Darren's actually he's a killer. So I'm not just picking a local pick because I got to see the guy at the burrito place. He's a killer. So
yeah, he's a contender in the flyweight division for sure.
Yeah.
What about the Aaron Simpson, Mike Pierce fight? You got any thoughts?
Yeah. This has got some interest for me. Man, I want to like Mike Pierce. I don't know why. I mean, it's hard to say. Like some of the stuff you see in interviews, you just I want to like the guy, But his loss to Koscheck,
that was ugly.
And then I didn't even like his win against Hosha, who even though I'm biased because I train with Hosha now, I don't know. I want to go with Simpson on this one.
Yeah, although Simpson's he's getting older, and
hey, guy's only 38.
It's a real thing, man.
No, you're right. No, you're right. You're right. I as much as I want to make believe it's not, you're right. So
Yeah, I mean, I gotta, as a friendly acquaintance, I have to advise you against taking any more blows to the head at your age. It is not a good age to be taking blows to the head, Eugene. The brain damage piles up quickly.
I got a shot in the head and it screwed up my equilibrium. So like I fell to the floor and I'm rolling. Because I'm on the floor, so I can roll. But then I woke up really bad vertigo the next day, and I came to train, and I said, "Hey, man, I got best. I don't know whether it's my brain or my ear." And my coach listens to me. He's like, "Yeah, okay. Well, let's get out there." And we get out there, takes me down, and the first thing he proceeds to do is deliver short, choppy shots to the ear. I'm like, it's not so much that this is a dangerous sport, but it's filled with unstable emotional characters. Yeah.
Sounds like you were training with a Brazilian.
Yeah. They also called the guy who shows up after conditioning, shows up fresh, and then wants to fight you like you're in the UFC. Except I've got this thing with the finger, and nobody has done what I would have done. It's like, oh, your finger hurts. The first 30 seconds, just grab the finger and yank it down.
No small joint manipulation.
No, but that's not a small joint.
That's true. Getting the whole flipper.
Even here, 3 fingers, technically not a small joint,
If you got in there with GSP, he'd do that. He'd get that opening round nut shot, and then what I call the championship nut shot, and then he'd get after you there. Well, I think we've covered UFC on FX, Browne versus Bigfoot. You have any thoughts about the ratings? How am I doing the ratings?
The fight itself?
The card, yeah, coming on.
I'm not. I tell you truthfully, the ratings thing. To get caught up in this whole. I mean, this is a couple different things. The paper in Toronto was talking about how sales for the John Jones fight were sluggish. They weren't blaming it on Jones, but the contention was, well, maybe the bloom has gone off the rose of the UFC. Maybe people are just not interested anymore. I mean, this date, it's like the election. Now everybody's saying, oh, Obama's going to lose this thing because Romney did not fuck up last night. Look. I mean, you have a couple different things. You have people watching at home. You have people pay per view. There are a lot of ways to see the fights. Are the aggregate numbers going up? I think the aggregate numbers are going up. Are the aggregate numbers of people who are willing to pay the full ride going up? This I don't know. In any case, I don't know if you're a baseball fan. When's the last time you watched a baseball game? When's the last time you watched a baseball game that you paid full value for?
I quit because of the World Series. When they killed the World Series in '94, that was it. I never came back.
Yep. I mean, actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And I'm about to do the same thing with hockey if they have a lockout. So
yeah. I wrote off. My hockey flirtation was brief. I was a serious baseball junkie. In fact, I was winning my rotisserie league in 1994 when they canceled the season, and I just.
Yeah, you see that kind of stuff ruined you. The fact that you were so. I mean, this is the same kind of thing. I mean, I know Dana probably worries about it. I know the UFC, but UFC fans are not going away. No. I mean, even if we got to go back to watching this stuff in high school gyms, the real fans are not going to go away. Will it? And the reality of it is, when you got guys like Chris Lieben saying, "Guess what? I'm broke," and Wes Sims was saying, "Broke nothing. I was living under a bridge."
Yeah.
So when you got these guys are still there and they're broke, so it's not like it's not like because you can't make a living wage in it because nobody's showing up because the ratings are crap. Whatever, I mean, high ratings are more money, more problems. It's a jail in and of itself. This is why Dana cringes at the idea of Nick Diaz holding a belt. Because I got commercial advertisers to think about. I can't have him appearing on Leno telling Jay Leno he likes to smoke weed and fuck the world. He can't have it.
Yeah.
So I would personally love it. I would love it, and I think I hope that Nick gets a chance to actually do that because you probably interviewed him as well. You get beyond the first 15 minutes with the guy. The guy's actually the word deep is overused, but there's a crazy logic to his logic.
He's an interesting cat. The thing with Diaz is, I'm all for any stupid shit he says as long as he shows up for the Leno show. That would be my concern that he just doesn't get on the plane and doesn't make it. You know,
I guess this once, maybe twice.
yeah, just once or twice. Actually, he's going to be. He and Nate are both going to be on MMA Uncensored with my man Luke Thomas tonight, and there were some nervous moments at Spike headquarters as their travel plans were somewhat delayed. But they did.
Well, you know what, man? He creates an event around an event. And it's like all eyes on me. Pretty soon, you're breathing, Nick Diaz. You're breathing because you're worried, you're thinking, you're calling. I mean, Fabiano Iha was going to send me to cover a fight somewhere. He told me, he said, and keep in mind, this is not exculpatory for Nick, but keep in mind. So Iha says I was supposed to go to cover a jungle fight for Walid Ismail down in the Amazonas, right? I go, where? Hey, man, the fight's in 3 days. Where's my ticket? He goes, oh, Eugene, man, he's over at the airport. I go, airport? Which airport? He goes, the airport. You just go to the airport to have your ticket. Which airport? What airline? He comes back to me and goes, oh, I'm sorry. SFO. Just go there. I go, what airline? He goes, just the airline that flies to Brazil. I can't work this, man. So this is, you have that happen to you enough times. Okay, Fabiano Iha is not the UFC, but Nick's ticket's late, or Caesar's got the ticket, he can't get a hold of Caesar. Fuck it, I'm gonna go train.
Who's to say? He's also claimed anxiety, which is a serious thing. And
hold on. He's claimed anxiety in connection to weed, or he's claimed anxiety in connection to showing up for press conferences.
Showing up for press conferences and weed, but he's gone with I'm too nervous to get on the plane thing.
Because he's nervous to fly, or because he's nervous in press conferences?
I think he's nervous about the whole cloud of bullshit that comes with the travel. What's waiting for him at the end of the travel, but it could be the flying as well. I don't know. I do know that he was late for his flight to New York yesterday. Had to go on a later flight, so we'll see. We'll see.
There's a whole raft of things that people don't see. It's like the Rodney King beating. They beat the rap the first time by saying, yeah, okay, we know what you saw in the video, but there was a whole lot of stuff that happened outside the video. So this is before April 29th that people went crazy because all we saw was the video. When I first interviewed Nick, I keep in mind, I'm down with Jake and Gil, so I'm hanging out. He's a known person to me. I call him on the phone, so it's just a voice, and I said, look, I'm going to call you back from the radio. We'll be live. He said, you down for this? He's like, hey, who is this? This is Eugene Robinson. He goes, you're not the gay guy with the alligator suit, are you? No, forget about for a second. What had to happen before? What was that exchange like? Was the gay guy in the alligator suit? Was he in an alligator suit and Nick assumed he was gay? There's a lot of stuff that happens to Nick that none of the rest of us see. Yeah. Laughing, man. I said, I'm not gay and I don't have an alligator suit, but
that's
some other time because you're upset about this. He's like, no, and he just kind of laughs. He goes, no, so it's okay. Strange things happen, man. You've been backstage at the fights, press conferences. Strange things happen. So.
It's a weird and heavy vibe. Well, I think we covered UFC on Fuel, Stipe Miocic versus Stefan Struve. We covered UFC on FX, Travis Browne versus Bigfoot Silva. Not a lot on the horizon. We got UFC 153 the week after that.
Oh, there's something on the horizon. Should we mention it now, or should we just do it later?
We can tease it. Just give us a little tease, and then we'll mention it. You'll be back next week, and we can cover it. Yeah. There you go. That's what we're talking about. Or it could be just that I'm sitting in a car in front of your house. That's all. It's a long way from Mountain View to Austin, my friend.
It's a friend of mine. His name, Mr. Marcus. He hit the press recently for being patient zero in the L.A. porn industry syphilis incident. But
Mr. Marcus was involved? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
He was patient zero, yeah. And he's been doing interviews talking about it. It's like, generally, man, if you're the guy who's been spreading syphilis, maybe you want to soft pedal the syphilis thing. It screws with your dating life.
I would think. It wasn't antibiotic resistant or anything, was it?
Well, no, he's cured. And the way he talked about it, it made sense how it happened. But that's not the point. The point is he was in Holland talking to some woman, and she goes, "Oh, Eugene, He goes, Eugene. Yeah, Eugene Robinson? He goes, Eugene Robinson? Yeah, Eugene S. Robinson? She goes, yeah, you know, I guess you know it. And he was like, yeah, Eugene gets around. So I could be in a car in Austin in front of your house, but I didn't mean you specifically. I meant everybody listening.
I see. Well, Eugene will be taking a world tour to Bloody Elbow readers' homes, and
to the curb in front of your house. You look out your window. Wait a minute.
All right, Eugene. Well, we'll talk about UFC 153 next week. If you like this sort of thing, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMANation.com on YouTube. Read about us on Bloody Elbow, and Eugene is going to be starting to do his own solo video vlogs, or video vloggers are done it, video vlogs, starting next Tuesday. Is that correct?
There you go. Well, I'll record it on Tuesday. I'll give it to you guys for Wednesday because Combat Music Radio has died an ignoble death, and I need a place for my knuckle up, and you guys were kind enough to give it. So
we're happy to have you. You going to be in Mountain View on Tuesday? Or you going to be traveling somewhere?
No, this Tuesday I'm in Mountain View. Oxbow has a brief tour from October 20th to October 29th. So I do the shows from the road too. So I may do it from the road. It depends on how the levels of inebriation run. I don't mean me. I'm good, clean living. I just mean the people around me.
No, it goes. Well, all right, Eugene, it's been a blast. We'll see you next week. Thanks everybody for watching.
Next week I'll be gloating again.
We'll see. I wrote these picks down, so you won't be able to just claim.
All right.
And bank on me being too lazy to go back and watch the tape.
All right, Nate. All right. We'll talk to you next week, man.
All right, see you, Eugene.
Bye-bye.